So this is going to be our class. And at the same time that we are going through the class, I'm going to jump into Revit, and I'm just going to follow along and do things in Revit that we should. Okay. So, aim of this tutorial. The tutorial aim is to create understanding and share parameters, creating and usage. For this tutorial, we will create a parameter that will help us to schedule the embodied CO2 in a structure. By means of schedule it, we will have the chance to understand where we can reduce the CO2 footprint in our structure. When creating the structure for a building, by changing our structural materials to more sustainable, we will achieve a CO2 neutral structure. Shared parameters. Shared parameters are parameters definitions that can be used in multiple families and projects. We can find them under the Manage tab, under Settings, and we have shared parameters. Shared parameters, definition parameters that you can add to families or projects. Shared parameters definitions are stored in a text file independent of Revit that allows you to access from different families or projects. So the idea here is that we create this data aggregator that contains all our shared parameters, and we can use them in multiple projects. And don't think about just projects. Think about a family. It's a project, just in another, just with another extension, right? So what happens is that the only way I can create consistency across multiple projects, families, schedules, tags, and everything, a tag family, it's a family as well, right? The way I can create this this consistency around all this is by having an external file, a TXT file that stores, in this case, my own shared parameters, but in a company, the company shared parameters. Does it make sense? Each company has their own shared parameters, and as you can imagine, the file gets extends. So this is the way it looks. The shared parameters. In here. So this is the file, and this is the parameters that are available. When you create a project parameter, I don't know if you remember, but you have the first option, right? Project parameter, and then you have shared parameter in the bottom. You are creating a project parameter based on a shared parameter. So what we say is that we are taking this idea. Okay, somebody had this idea of creating this parameter. I'm using this idea to create my own. So then there is consistency across all families and all projects. Make sense? Okay, so share parameters are saved in a text file that can be placed in your computer or in a shared area network for others to allow access to it. Note, your session of Revit can reference only one shared parameter file at a time. This is not. It doesn't ship with a project. It's on your Revit session. So as the same as you having your own shortcuts, you will have your own shared parameters. Okay, so you can only have one file of share parameters inside your Revit file. Yes. Morning. You can create the share parameters. This text file, it can be created on a project or in a family. The same. It's manage share parameters. Okay. This is the two ways of the two differences between the two environments. Okay. After creating the text file, you will need to create a group. Try to think, normally these files contain hundreds of parameters, and we group them to be easier to find and to keep more organized, right? Because of the company, let's say Kobe or Bjarke Engels, they can only have one file of shared parameters. What happens is that every project, when they need a parameter, they will create it, and they will create it on this shared parameters file. So then you can imagine that after some time, it gets big. We need to be organized. And in order to be organized, Autodesk developed groups. So actually, it's impossible to create a new parameter if you don't create a group. Try to think a group as just identity data, dimensions, just for you to understand where you are. There is no need to be correct at this stage, okay? So, I created a group called CO2 parameters. And I'm going to we can select discipline. Yeah, says.
If you place the shared parameter in the group, can you change it afterwards? Change your mind and it was in this group should be in that.
What group?
you said you don't really have to
Property move. Yeah. You have the move. Yeah. I didn't know. I don't know. But yeah, it makes sense. Okay. Yeah. So here I created this specific CO2 footprint, and I did this in two ways. So at this one, we have here discipline common and type of parameter number. I would really like to have something like kilograms, right? What I'm doing here, I'm defining the units of this value, right? I can put it as a text. I can put it as several things. We're going to go through them a little bit. And but because it's specific, do you understand the concept of specific CO2 footprint? So it's the you guys have talked about specific weight, right, of a certain material. Concrete, it's 2.3 tons per cubic meter. Water, it's 1,000 kilos, right? Specific CO2 footprint is the same as that. How much kilograms per unit of volume? Yeah. How many CO2 kilograms per unit of volume? Yeah. That of course changes with the material. It should change with the region, it should change with the manufacturer and everything, but we are simplifying because there are some numbers that we just can't take. Okay, and it's not yet a standard that the manufacturers share the CO2 footprint of a specific element, because the idea of this, it would be that we schedule everything: windows, doors, bricks, everything. At this point we do the structure. Okay, so we have two parameters. We're going to create two parameters: specific CO2 footprint. This is going to be a type parameter in the family, and then we have the CO2 footprint. It's a formula that we're going to do inside the family. That's going to be the 3 dimensions of the family times that specific CO2 footprint that you created just before. Yeah. After that, after we created the files on the shared files, we're going to create family parameters. So we're going to go inside the family and we're going to create the parameters on the family. So we're going to have something here. So based on these elements, we're going to have the CO2 footprint. So this family, it should be all right. We have to change on all of these structural families. So you're going to have wood columns, concrete columns, and beams. And the only thing that we cannot change, we cannot make it on wood. Is there any solution for this one, guys? I'm asking that one. Foundations of not concrete. Yeah, I guess we're still lacking something there. Okay, but anyway. After that, we're going to edit another family. That's the multi-category family. We're going to read the information correctly. So again, with the share parameters. Okay, in this case, it's going to be a CO2 footprint. And because it's a number now, we can put a suffix into this tag that's just tell us kilograms. Okay. And after that, we apply the parameter to the structural project. We apply that, so we apply this share parameter into these categories: structural columns, footings, and framing. What we can do that because then we select a multi-category schedule. So we create a multi-category schedule, let's say there, and of course these are common. All the elements in Revit have family and type, CO2 footprint, and category. All of them have that. We're gonna sort by. We have grand totals. We're gonna have totals also on the CO2 footprint, and this is what we're gonna have. So in this structure, in this specific project, we have 184 kilograms of CO2. We have some parts that are negative in here. So we have all the columns, all the beams are negative, and this of course gets a result for all the structure. All the structure is 184. Should I go into Revit? Any questions? You are almost there.
I'm almost there. I'm wondering about lifetime. So I get that it's the what's stuck inside the material from the manufacturer of it, but what if it's been used several times, or if it only has half the lifetime of concrete? So it might have a lower CO2 footprint, but it might be exchanged 2 or 3 times
Yeah,
over the
exactly,
lifetime of the
exactly,
building.
exactly. No, what we are accounting here, it's only the manufacturer's perspective. We are assuming that everything is new from the factory, and we are assuming that all the elements are, for instance, wood. It could be recycled, or
And they all
and even
last exactly
concrete.
the same time as well.
Yes, exactly. So what we don't count the time here. What we count is that, okay, it was delivered on site. How much CO2 was for this? And that's what we are counting on. And we are using two numbers: minus 1000 for wood and plus 402 for concrete. Okay, these numbers, of course, they vary because you also emit CO2 on transport, right? So every unit, it will be a different tricky little bit, right? But we are simplifying things here a little bit, and this is, I think, it's good enough to understand the already in your because what thing is that what happens is this. Of course, this project, it's this schedule is live connected to your geometry, right? We are inside Revit, right? You should model with this schedule by your side all the time. So that's the idea. You are changing your structure for wood, or putting a little bit more concrete or steel as well. Well, I don't have the number for steel, but I should actually. And uh, as long as you are modeling, your numbers will go up or down according to your decision and what you want. You want a carbon neutral structure or negative structure to compensate all the other elements. Yeah. So the idea is that you model with this in mind. So the schedule is set up from the beginning, and you are modeling and watching it grow at the same time as you are modeling. Okay. Let's see. I think your structures. Would you say that you will have a negative value or a positive value in your structures?
Negative or zero. We only need half as much wood as we do concrete, because it's minus 1,400, so we only need half the amount for it to do zero. So negative.
Okay, yeah, I think so. I think it'll be negative as well because you guys have lots of wood. You only have concrete in the first foundation and some beams, right?
But actually, if we are using free, we have like a hybrid slab, which is
A mix of.
yeah, concrete and wood.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
But how can we do like how can we define the CO2?
Then you need to find the specific CO2 footprint, not for the material, but for the element. So you have 1 meter of beam. The formula changes a little bit. So 1 meter of it's a beam. It's not a slab. It's a beam. It's many beams together. It becomes a slab. 1 meter of this beam has a certain amount of CO2 footprint. Then just multiply by the length of it. Instead of having 402, you will have whatever. It's going to be a bit less. It's going to be like 300. I don't know your sizes, but it should be like 300, 400 negative. I guess you have more wood than concrete.
But isn't the CO2 footprint the same no matter how much the amount is? It's still going to be 402 per.
No, but because here we have a composed element made on two materials.
Yes, but so the wood part is still going to have
minus 1000. Yes, but you need to schedule it. You cannot schedule it separately in Revit. So you can schedule by element. And normally by element, by default, we have a column of concrete or a column of wood. That's it. We don't have a column of concrete and wood, right? So what we are doing here today, we are scheduling it by material, right? CO2 footprint, specific CO2 footprint of material. In this case, material, concrete and wood. In this case, because this element is made of, it's a composite of two materials, we cannot schedule it by specific weight of material because we cannot separate the two. What we have to do, it specific CO2 footprint per element, per unit of element. In this case, 1 meter of beam, right? But before that, we have to decompose it and calculate, okay, how much is the concrete, how much is the wood, join both together, and that's my new number that I shoot into Revit for this specific. Okay. So I'm gonna just open it. Yeah, I think I'm still recording. Yes, just open Revit. I'm gonna do two structures really fast. I'm gonna create one in concrete, another one in wood. Does it make sense if we do this number? Because otherwise it wouldn't be. If we put minus 1,000 for this, it doesn't really represent the truth because we have lots of concrete on top.
No, but wouldn't it be more like minus 600 or minus 500?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. It depends on how much concrete you have, because the concrete is gonna consume a little bit of your wood. But if the wood is two thirds or even more,
Uh,
3/4,
is something
yeah,
2/3. So
2/3, yeah, I would say 600, yeah. Okay,
minus 600.
minus 600 exactly. Yeah, yeah, of course, because wood is negative. It's minus because the wood on his life. Do you know this? The wood on his life receives the CO2, right? And so it's traps the CO2 on itself. Okay, so I'm going to create a new project based on the structural template. Nothing special here. I'm just using the structural families, so it makes more sense for me to use the structural template. There is no difference between the templates. There is no mechanical difference between templates. They work with the same. All the toolbars that you have, they're all the same. Try to think as the project template as a bucket of Legos. If I'm doing a structural model, I need structural Legos. But if I do an architectural model, I need a bucket of architectural Legos. It's not that I cannot change them and bring them one to the other. It's just more work that I have. So I just use, I'm doing a structure, I'm going to use the structural part of Revit. So then all the Legos that I need will be there. Okay, so I'm going to do a grid here just to save some time. I don't care about 10,000. I'm going to use concrete at this stage. This one is enough. Not wall, sorry. Why can't I see my columns? Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Sorry. Level 1. 0. Okay. I'm gonna go on the 3D and I'm gonna create structure beams. 3D snapping. Approximated level 2. I'm just gonna do something so then we have some variety. Okay, so now I'm gonna just filter this, take the grids out. But I don't have the beams, that's right. Filter, structural framing girder. And then I don't have the foundations. No, I have everything that I don't need. Select everything. What I'm gonna do, so we'll just go find, so then you can see the structure. So what I did, I just copied the structure to the other side, right? So it's two structures of concrete. Okay, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna change one of it. So I'm gonna put shaded as well, so then we see the materials. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna change one to be wood. Okay, so I'm gonna just select on these columns here, this one as well. Why can't I select? I don't know. Oh, I have the beams are not correct. I should use concrete beams. This one. Just gonna do it. Okay, so I don't have nothing on wood, right? I need to load the family. So insert, load family. Structural columns, wood, timber, blue glam, southern pine. I'm gonna use this one. That's what you're using, right? Blue glam columns. Okay, probably not gonna have the correct. Yeah, this is too narrow. If I'll do this, yeah, it's too shallow. So I'm gonna have to create a new type. What was the dimension of the other column? 450 times 300 times 450. Okay, same here. I'm gonna create a new. I'm gonna use a beam of wood. So I'm gonna. I know. Let me see if I have something here. No, I have steel and that's it. So insert family. Structural framing. Wood. I'm gonna use this one. Glue same material. The biggest one. Yeah, still not the same. So I'm going to create another one, 300 times 600. Edit type. Okay, so I have these two structures, right? Nothing I can do on the foundations. That they are concrete and that's it. Okay, so I'm going to create the share parameters file, and this is the way it looks. So go to manage tab, share parameters. I already have one loaded into my project, but I'm going to discard it. I'm going to create a new one. Okay, so I'm going to create, and we're going to text file, and we're going to call it one eye for. Sorry, for eye. I'm going to save it. It's a text file. Okay, so this is the way it looks. I've created my file and nothing's there. I have to create a group of information. So I'm going to name this group CO2 information. CO2 information. It's not correctly. Parameters. Okay, I didn't care a lot when I was creating the group number. I just CO2 information. in this, when we create a parameter, we need to really be care because when we do formulas, it's the name of the parameters, they're going to be sensitive, and we really need this information to be correct. Okay, so I'm going to create a parameter called specific CO2 footprint. It's going to be common, and it's going to be a number. Okay, what I have here, I don't know if you see, I have mass density, and actually this would be a mass density. It's something per cubic meter. It will be correct, but the next parameter that I want to create, that's going to be called that's the end of in the end is going to be just kilograms, right? I'm just putting another layer of complication on top of it. I can do it with more iterations, but at this stage I'm just going to make sure that it works. I'm going to use just numbers to simplify it. So I remove this this variable from my studies. Okay, so for now it's just a number. I can change the tooltip, so I can write something here that tells me when I hover my mouse on top of the parameters, it will show me what it is. I'm not going to do that. So specific CO2 footprint, and I'm going to create another one, the same thing, it's a number as well, and it's going to be CO2 footprint. Okay, so my share parameters file is created. Now I'm going to edit this family, so I'm going to double click in it, so I go inside the family, and I'm going to just see what parameters this family has. Okay, so there is two parameters here. I have material, yeah, that's fine. Dimensions, I have a B and D, and but actually to calculate this volume, I'm a bit short. I need another parameter, that's the height. The height is going to change according to the level that we assign. In this case, our level should be 3000, but it doesn't report. It's not a type parameter. Okay, so I need to create this value for me to use it in the future. So I'm going to come here to my elevation back. I'm going to create a dimension between these two reference planes, and I know that this dimension will change according to the family, according to the level when I place it on the, and this should be, it shouldn't be type parameter, it should be an element parameter, because every parameter might have, even they are the same time, every column might have a different height, right? So it's an element parameter, sorry. Okay, so this dimension, I'm going to create a parameter that's instance parameter, and I'm just going to call it age. Okay, under dimensions, everything is all right. Fine. Now I need to create, I'm going to create this parameter now. I'm create a new parameter based on a shared parameter. I'm going to select the file, and it's going to be specific CO2 footprint. That's going to be a type parameter, that's fine by me. Everything is selected because of the shared parameters, it gives me this information. I'll say okay. This one, I want the value to be locked to, we're talking about wood, right? Minus 1000. Okay. I'm going to create another parameter here, a share parameter. In this case, the CO2 footprint. In this case, it's going to be an instance parameter. Okay. Because of the height changes with every instance. So CO2 footprint, the value by default comes at 0. I don't want to use the value, I want to use a formula. So it's going to be P times D times H. This gives me cubic meters, right? I don't want to use cubic meters, so then I divide by 1. Revit will follow up and say that, okay, it's 1 cubic meter. It's going to give me a number, right? That's what I want. I want a number to be multiplied by another number, that's specific CO2 footprint, times specific CO2 footprint. should be correct. Okay, it's already calculating. Minus 44 kilograms. I can do some calculations by hand and check. I think it's a good idea at this stage. You should never trust Revit. Do some calculations by hand because I don't know if you notice here, but on top where I have my mouse, we are talking about millimeters, right? Millimeters times millimeters times millimeters should give me millimeter cube, right? But Revit somehow gives me cubic meters. Okay, so be aware of that. I know that this value is correct because I tested it, so it's fine. So this family, this type has already a specific CO2 footprint, but the other types they don't have. So I have to go minus 1000 and minus 1000. I'm going to be fine now from now on because when I'm creating another type, I'm duplicating one existing one. So all the existing ones should have already a specific CO2 footprint. So now it should be okay. So I'm gonna say okay to this. Close and load. Do you want to save it on your computer? No. Do you want to save it in your project? Yes. Same for these ones. Edit family. Same. We're gonna go to the views, elevation. Not VH. Okay. Let me check. Okay. See, there is no consistency even in the same families, in the system families. The other one was BD and this one is BH. I'm just gonna change it to the. Specific CO2 footprint in this in concrete is going to be minus 402. Sorry, yes, positive. Yeah, correct. Plus 402, and formula is the same. Is two parentheses b times d times h divided by 1 times specific CO2 footprint. Just going to copy this value. Okay. This one is almost 1 cubic meter. No, it's more than 1 cubic meter. Okay. So everything is fine. Just going to place it. Load into project and close. Do I want to save it on my machine? No. I want to save it in this project? Yes. And overwrite its existing values. Okay, so now if I come here, I should have a CO2 footprint of this element, and I should have, so it's positive, and this one should be negative. No, it's not the analytical one. This one, yes. CO2 footprint minus 402. Okay, how much time do we have left? 40 minutes. I'm gonna do it, it's gonna be the same. Just changes because I'm gonna do for beams and I'm gonna do it for foundations. It's gonna take a little bit, but it's gonna be the same. Okay, so there is no need for you to be. I'm just gonna edit the family. Yeah, I'm gonna do the same. CO2 footprint in all of them. Okay. So in this one I have the 3 dimensions. Yes, I'm just gonna create a share parameter. Select specific CO2 footprint. Just say okay. 402. And then again another one. Share parameters select. CO2 footprint, yes. Instance, yes. And yeah, it's going to be foundation. I have two parentheses again. Foundation thickness times width times length, everything divided by 1 times specific CO2 footprint. I hope I type everything correct. This is case sensitive, so if you have okay, it worked fine. I'm gonna change it to the other type as well. 402. Say okay. And load and close. Do you want to save changes to? I don't want to save it on my computer, but I want to override these parameters. Just checking. Yes. And now I'm missing the beams, concrete beams, and the other beams. So I'm going to do concrete first. I'm going to check the parameters. So I have everything here. It's correct. I just need to create these two parameters. Share parameters, specific CO2. So, okay, this is going to be 402. Share parameters, select CO2 footprint, instance. B times. Oh yeah, sorry. Times length divided by 1. I'm missing one parenthesis on this side. Times okay, it's not B, it's D. What is B? Yes. D, okay. It's called age on this one. B, age, and length. Okay. Let me see how many types I have. 402. So, okay. Load into project and close. Changes to rectangulars. No. Override. So my concrete beam should have a CO2 footprint now. Yes. I'm gonna do the same. Last one. Do the same for this wood family. Same. Okay, at least there is some consistency on these ones. Specific. And specific is going to be minus 1000. Next one, CO2 footprint. Yes, instance. And that's going to be times B times D. The other one was H divided by 1 times specific CO2 footprint. I'm sorry, I should have this, everything should be
lowercase.
okay. Let's try. It's not a valid parameter. Just, this should happen like the magic of the television. We do the recipe right, and then we put it in the oven, and then just take it right away. It's not like that in these classes. I need to change the other type. I know that you guys must be sleeping already. It doesn't help as well. There is a Monday morning. Okay, so load, save, no. override. So everything here has a CO2 footprint, right? But I need to see it at some point. What I want to do, I want to come here, annotate. I want to have a multi-category tag. There's not loaded now, but I want to have a multi-category tag that is looking for the CO2 footprint. So when I hover my mouse here, it will give me a tag. Okay, whatever kilos of CO2 footprint embodied on this everything, right? And because it's a multi-category, it will affect structural foundations, structural columns, and structural framings. And that's what we have. We will the orientation of the 3D must be locked. Yeah. I'm gonna just lock this view. Just gonna CO2. No, multi-category is loaded. We want to put load on now. Yes. I'm gonna go back from the. I'm gonna go to annotations. It should be somewhere here. Multi-category. Where is it? Oh, I see here. Yeah. Okay. So open. It's loaded now. If I go to level 1, if I come to annotate multi-category, it's looking for something, but probably that something doesn't have a value. Okay, so let's see what is that something. Edit family. I click on the label. I'm going to see the label, and it's looking at the type mark values. Okay, can you see here? It's looking at the type mark. I don't want it to look at the type mark. I want to look at the CO2 footprint. So I'm going to create a new parameter inside the family based on the share parameter. Yes, the CO2 footprint. That's what I want to see. CO2 footprint. I'm going to pass it to this side. I'm going to type parameter. I'm going to move it back. Suffix. I'm going to have kilograms, maybe with a space, so it's not so compressed. Prefix nothing. Space is 1. Yeah, that's break. No, that's fine. So I'm just going to make sure that it looks more or less correct. Load into the project. Do you want to save it? No. Override? Yes. I'm going to create similar. Make sense? Otherwise we couldn't do it. The tag needs to make sure that, I don't know if you noticed, but when we are loading, so I'll come here and I'll change the label of this task, of this CO2, right? I'm just gonna load one, select. Let's say that I do this one. Let's say that I want a specific CO2 footprint. Okay? When I press OK, try to notice something here. These three fields here, this is what keeps consistency across my project. Okay, so on all the families and on the tag and in the project, they know that specific CO2 footprint, that's the name of the parameter. Discipline is common, and the units, it's a number. Okay, this is what creates consistency across the projects and across the families and across. That's why I can schedule it. That's why I can tag it, and yeah, that's why. Okay. I'm gonna cancel out of here, so because I did it already. No. So what I'm missing now, let me go to the 3D that I just created. Let me multi-category tag it. Why can't I see the tag? I don't understand. It should show the tag. Anyway, multi-category. It does the beams as well. Okay. and this should be a negative. Let me check. Okay. So at this point, what I'm missing is to create a schedule, right? I want to schedule all this information, and yeah. So schedule, new schedule, quantities. In this case, I'm going to select multi-category schedule. That's what I want. And because the CO2 footprint, it's a shared parameter, I can create a multi-category schedule with the CO2 footprint. This is all the other ones that I can create. Not so many. This is going to increase, of course, when it gets anyway. CO2 footprint. That's what I need. I need to know what I'm talking about. I'm going to use family and type, and I'm going to use category just to separate foundations from. Okay, so I'm going to move category up, family, CO2 footprint. I'm not going to filter information. Information is going to be filtered by itself. So the ones that have CO2 footprint will be scheduled. The ones who don't, they don't. Okay. Sorting and grouping. I'm going to sort by category, then by family and type. I want to have totals. And from these totals, I want this one to calculate totals. Okay? It's good that I have this in video, right? But it makes sense, right? So at this stage, my structure, it's minus 1072 kilograms per structure. Yeah. It would be nice if you guys model with this in mind. So when you do this, the numbers change. I have more concrete now. So more concrete and almost getting into zero. No, it's already positive. Yeah. 87. Come on. You get the idea, right? If I increase this structure here, well, of course, I don't have a grid line here. If I increase this structure, then of course it will compensate. Okay?